right. Still Sunday out here. A little after the golden hour. This is the time where normally you don't have many groups going by on the tee box, but you have some real dedicated folks, some singles out, some walkers, some guys with push carts, or just some people are just trying to get some final holes in prior to the sunset, which appears to be pretty close. Any of you golfers out there, you know what that's like. You know what it's like if you're. Typically, this happens if you're playing 18. There goes the drive. Typically, this happens if you're playing 18 and you go out and you're trying to get in those final couple holes, and you're looking at the sun as it's coming down, and you're kind of monitoring the groups in front and how long or how much and quick your pace of play has been up until then, and kind of trying to estimate if you're going to get your 18 in your last couple holes. It almost becomes a game within the game. There's the golf, and then it's kind of like that episode of Seinfeld back in the day where Kramer was driving I want to say it was like a Volvo or something like that, and he kept either missing or passing over exits to put gas in it, and eventually it became like a thrill in itself for Kramer, and they were seeing how far they could push it without getting gas. It's kind of like that, I think, with when you're out playing an evening round and trying to get as many holes in as you can until the end. And so in any case, a little daylight left. Smoking a cigar here, which I intend to start doing more frequently when I do these videos. Kind of due to the cigar game, really. I enjoy it. I enjoy the experience, but I wouldn't say that I have any like refined palate for it or advanced palate for it or anything like that at this point. If anything, I have kind of a elementary taste for the cigars, in that I kind of like the sweet things that have some flavor. And I know that for the cigars guys out there, that you've got these more robust flavored cigars, or natural flavored. I don't even know the right terminology for it yet, but I hope to get there. But since I don't drink, or stopped drinking, I should say, I've kind of taken up the hobby of the cigars. And there's some guys out here on YouTube that I like to watch that do the same, which hasn't necessarily inspired the cigar smoking, but it perhaps has inspired the making of videos while smoking a cigar. But as I'm doing it, I'm seeing that the smoke is kind of percolating through the camera lens. So I don't know. This is new. We'll see if with time we can figure it out a bit. Also, I was out to lunch the other day. I was doing an interview of somebody. It was initially supposed to be a coffee thing, meeting for a coffee, but neither of us had lunch, so we ended up deciding to get some lunch. And it was a beautiful day. We decided to sit outside, and it was a windy day, though, like really windy. So much so that the menus kept blowing away. And so I put the menu under the little bread plate or whatever, and underneath my cell phone. And it was so windy that there was a gust that came under the menu, and both the plate like went off to the side, and the menu in my phone went tumbling to the ground. So I have a little issue with my camera here. It makes it seem like I have some type of like illumination over the bottom portion of the screen, which that isn't a glare from the sun. That's some sort of crack on the camera. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was cars. I'm in the car business. Been in the car business for my whole life, really. But I think there's kind of two schools on this thing. There's some guys out here who are big into cars, or really nice cars, or exotic cars, or maybe they're gearheads and car guys per se. And then there's kind of another school of thought that I'm seeing out here, which is more of like maybe like a stoic mindset, or like a not necessarily either appreciating or prioritizing nice things, or maybe living a more minimalist life. I'm not exactly sure what it is, and I can really see both sides of it. But I will say, one thing I've come to feel and believe is that driving a car, or just having a car, is an emotional experience. It's an experience that is different from one car to the next. It's not just transportation. It's something more than that. It really is. And having driven lots of different type of cars, I'm not necessarily a car guy per se. I wouldn't say I'm a car guy. I'm certainly not a gearhead, and I have very little kind of interest in or affinity for kind of like some of the enthusiast type of stuff. There's guys who go to the Cars and Coffees, and they love talking about cars and looking at different cars. I'm not like that, but I'm always around cars, and I have noticed that I feel differently when I drive a different car. And that applies to both new cars and used cars. And probably the most basic or fundamental example of this is when you have a customer who comes to trade in their vehicle, and you have to go appraise their vehicle, and you have to get inside their car. And if it is an old hoopty, or something that is just like has not been well maintained, or whatever it is, you don't want to get in that car. Like, you don't want. I used to have a guy who I worked for, a general sales manager, who would say that if the car was not worth as much as his suit, he would not get inside it. He would just appraise it without getting in it. That is to say, in the car business, what we would refer to as like a $500 car, right? And there's many cars that they have depreciated so much, they're in such poor condition, mechanically, and the bodies of the cars and such, that they have become what we call a $500 car. May even be a $100 car. In that, if you were to send that car to an auction to wholesale it, then it would be worth nothing, basically. So you couldn't even give the customer anything really more than $100, because the cost of towing it to an auction and the cost of paying a wholesaler would basically be more than what it would actually sell for at the sale. All of this, though, is to say that that's kind of an example of when you get in an old car, or a car that has not been well maintained or has been very lived in. You don't want to get in that car. It impacts your mood. It makes you feel a certain way. It makes you feel not good, really, to get into something like that. The same applies if a customer comes in and they have an amazing car, or some type of exotic car, or high dollar car, whatever you want to call it. Everybody, all the sales managers, all the appraisers, they're all eager to be the one who goes out to appraise that vehicle, so that they can be the one who gets that moment to sit behind that wheel, to know what it's like to experience that vehicle just for a moment, to be able to take it for a drive if it's a car that is maybe high horsepower or something like that, to just get that experience. And we'll often see when those type of cars pull up and the customers are considering trading them in, there'll often be a kind of little crowd around that car, with everybody checking it out. So I'm not necessarily like some type of believer that, um, you know, like money equals happiness, or that a nice car will make you happier as a person. But I think at its most basic level, anyone can admit that a car does impact your mood and can impact your mood. And if you have a nicer car versus a not so nice car, normally you're going to feel better when you're getting into that nicer car. Um, the opposite can be true also with respect to nostalgia. There's a lot of people who have a car for a very long time and they develop a emotional relationship or attachment to that car, where there's many memories and experiences that customer or person has experienced while they've had that car, or over the years that they've driven that car. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, I was just out driving a car today. It was a beautiful sunny day, and the windows were down, the music was going, and regardless of how I may have been feeling prior to doing that, I felt good and uplifted for that 20 or 30 minutes that I was behind the wheel. And you kind of get lost a little bit, especially if it's the type of car that is like a driver's car, something that really handles well and things like that. Um, so, this isn't like a sales pitch or anything like that, but I think there's a lot of people out there who want to be practical, and their practicality influences them quite a bit. They want to make responsible financial decisions, but I think there's some people who feel like getting new cars or upgrading your cars frequently is some type of like, um, it's almost like it's like they feel like they're being impractical if they do that, right? But when it comes to certain things, when it comes to, let's say, clothing, for example, like if you just always wear the same clothes and you never get a new shirt, and you're doing that not on necessarily on the basis of comfort, but on the basis of practicality, well, at some point you're going to be someone who's walking around in an old shirt. Which, nothing's wrong with that. But if you have the means to get a new shirt, and the same thing, if you have the means to get a new car, and it can potentially be uplifting, it can make you feel better. Not like better about yourself in terms of like a self-esteem situation, but just like better. You just feel better. It's like, how do you feel when you have a clean room compared to a messy room? Like, you feel better in the clean space. You feel better in newer spaces sometimes. So I think sometimes people think like, well, it's almost like the Buddhist mindset, or like some type of like non-attachment mindset, where like, I don't want to get anything nice or new because I don't want my identity tied to that. And like, I don't need to be the high-powered lawyer who goes out and gets, who has to have a nice Mercedes to make him feel better about himself. But I think there's a distinction between, if you can identify if getting something nice is to make you feel better about yourself, or you have just recognized that it actually legitimately just makes you feel better. You just feel better. You just enjoy the experience, and you're not too ashamed to admit that, oh man, if it's time for me to upgrade to a new car and I have the means to do so, and my previous car represented a certain wonderful period of time in my life, but this new car is the opportunity for a new chapter, like a rebirth almost, um, then why not? Like, what's wrong with that? And I'll tell you, my favorite car company, my favorite car brand is Toyota. The only car I've ever owned personally was a Toyota, which I still have, a Toyota 4Runner. And that's another thing. Cars feel different from brand to brand. The experience is much different. And there's something about a Toyota that just feels like they have the reputation for reliability, for um, dependability, like these type of things. But it also feels, when I'm in a Toyota, like it feels like who, whoever made this vehicle, which is Toyota, that like everything that they did was intentional. Like nothing was it doesn't feel like anything was accidental. Like they never do too much and they never do too little. It's always like they're almost like in the mind of the type of person that they think will buy a given car. Like if it's a Highlander or a Grand Highlander or something like that, that is like a family vehicle. Like when you get in there, you're kind of like, oh, they knew what, like, that I was a dad or whatever, mom, and then I was going to be in this vehicle, and this is what my purpose was going to be while in it. Similarly, if you're in a Land Cruiser, if you're in a 4Runner, the experience is along the same lines. A Supra, like go through the whole model line. Like it really, if you're behind the wheel of one of those cars, you're going to feel like you should be there. Um, and this really wasn't meant to be like some type of endorsement of Toyota, um, but that's been my personal experience. So I feel the same way sometimes about watches, but not all the time, with respect to like a watch could make you feel, you can feel a certain way about a watch, and you can feel a certain way about wearing a watch. But I think with either a watch or a car, the key is to not get caught up in the outside validation, the the other person's perspective. Like if you're in the car and you're driving it and you're experiencing it, and that brings you joy, and that experience in itself, you can recognize and identify that it has positively impacted your mood in the moment, and then over many rides has improved your mood many times over, then that makes sense. It's a whole nother thing if you're like getting some sort of shot of dopamine or validation off of like sitting at a stoplight and like thinking of what the guy next to you is thinking of you, or if you're like telling people, I bought this new car, and you're feeling a certain way about telling someone like how they're going to think of you because you now, like, that's not it. That's not what it's about. um, But it's almost the opposite, where like if you have a nice car and you almost like don't want to tell anybody about it, because you're like, you're not because you're ashamed of having it, but you're like, you know that people will place a judgment on you based off the car that you drive, but that's not going to stand in the way of you getting something that you know you will get joy out of having and driving, and you're in a position to do so. So I think that's kind of where the balance is being able to get things that you want to experience without having to share with other people that aren't in the car, uh, that you've gotten them. So no expectations from the outside world, but also not being controlled by the opinions of others, where you can't get something or you don't want to get something because you're worried about some negative opinion from the outside world. So we've gone long enough on this, and it's a lot of thinking, but it's it's a space with wherein I operate, and I get to see people often on a daily basis and what their relationship is with a car, like what their relationship is with a car, but also psychologically what their relationship is with a car. And sometimes it's just a pure relationship that they have with a car. A lot of times car people are like this. And then other times people are operating with stories in their mind that either they've been telling themselves for a very long time, or perhaps their parents felt a certain way about cars, and my dad always kept his car really clean, so I keep my car really clean. Or my dad said that we ride cars till they die, and that's what we do, and that's what I'll pass along to my son. Um, or the mom, could come from the mom, whatever it is. And certainly could be something you've created on your own. But anyway, since this is kind of my world a bit, and some of the things that I've been talking about on here have not been really, you know, auto-focused, I felt that maybe it was time to put something out there. So chew on that a little bit. Thank you.